So excited to be talking to the wonderful Tara Eglington, who is a passionate perimenopause advocate, and I'm obsessed with your jumper. I hope that you're going to be doing a merch drop or something like that soon. Um, but yeah, so wonderful to connect with you in person. We've gotten to know each other a little bit recently on Instagram. It's the best part of the internet is, connecting with brilliant, talented people and being able to have a conversation and get to know each other, share passions and interests. But I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background, your career, your journey. How did you come to be so passionate about perimenopause and menopause?
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for having me for the chat. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to talk about perimenopause. I'm extremely passionate about speaking about perimenopause. My background, I'm a writer. I also work in health as well. And yeah, I think it's been very interesting for me. I've always written in the young adult space. I've written a lot about actually the other side of the spectrum, which is puberty. And then perimenopause obviously has its parallels.
Mm.
For me, I'm very passionate, I think, because of my experience. So I started experiencing perimenopausal symptoms at around the age of 36, which seems to be quite young, but from what we know about menopause and perimenopause is the actual period before your menopause can start up to 10 years before your final periods. Um, and so for me, I had some very odd symptoms to start. I had everything from burning feet to sleep problems to sudden onset of like quite severe anxiety. And I think, like a lot of Australian women, my knowledge of perimenopause and menopause, I didn't even know that perimenopause was a thing. I just thought, menopause. One day my periods will just stop. That's how naive I was. It would just magically stop, and that will be terrific. And I had no idea about this kind of time period leading into it. I think for me, what has been the most surprising thing about the journey, in terms of like educating myself, is that very often I think the first symptoms of perimenopause can actually be things around sleep and also mental health. And obviously, the two have a really strong connection. If you're not sleeping well, you're going to be more prone to obviously often feeling more anxious or having more troubles with mood. Um, and I think, it took me probably about, I knew in my gut, I think that something was wrong, that it was hormonal, but due to
Mm.
my age, I had a bit of a journey in terms of finally getting that diagnosis and being told, look, you are in perimenopause, and there's a reason that you'd be feeling this way.
Mm. Mm. And when you look back on that time about, what you were experiencing, the struggle to sort of connect the dots and find the right information, what do you wish you had known sooner that now looking back you think could have made that journey a bit easier?
Definitely. So I think it's like I always say to women now, your very first signs, like I was saying, were asleep or, changes in your mental health. So that can be anything from new onset anxiety or depression. It can be if you've suffered from, say, anxiety and depression in the past, it can be a worsening of those conditions. It can just be changes in your mood, more irritability, feeling teary, just not feeling like yourself is, I think, the way that so many women describe it. And I
Mm.
think, if I had understood that some of those symptoms come on a long time before, the ones that we know about menopause, like your hot flushes and your night sweats, I think it would have been a lot less scary.
Mm.
Um, and I think here in Australia, with what's been happening with the Senate inquiry into perimenopause and menopause, which I was lucky enough to put in a submission and give some evidence in terms of my own lived experience. Um, you know, hopefully we're going to see some changes just in terms of, I guess, perimenopause being more part of the conversations that we're having with each other, but also, with our GPs, and the GPs kind of having the opportunity to, have more chance to have that education around the types of symptoms to look out for. I
Mm.
think if I'd walked into my GP's office and they'd gone, oh, okay, like, quite a number of these symptoms can actually be a sign of perimenopause. Perhaps that's something that we should consider, and there are options in terms of helping some of these symptoms. I think I would have felt a lot less terrified.
Mm. I imagine that, part of this journey has been really challenging for you as well. And so, just that fear, uncertainty, confusion, doubt, not really understanding what was happening, then actually understanding what was happening, finding a word to put to this, to connect the dots. Um, what advice would you give your former self? Or maybe another way, I'm sure you're also talking to a lot of people now about helping them connect the dots or work through their own experience, navigate perimenopause for themselves. What sort of advice do you give people who are either really struggling, really impacted by those symptoms and how it's affecting their life? Or maybe just struggling to understand what's happening and to sort of make sense of that. What's your guidance and wisdom to those people?
Absolutely. I think like one of the things that's probably helped me the most is knowing that I wasn't alone in what I was going through. I think, like you said, not having that word and not understanding, I think, in your 30s, you've reached a place where you know yourself quite well. You know your own normal and what feels right, and then to suddenly feel so not yourself is a frightening experience. So I think in your 30s, the best thing you can do is probably try and educate yourself about perimenopause. Perhaps it's something that's down the track for you, it's not for quite a while, or perhaps it's something that you're starting to get the signs and symptoms. I think we're incredibly lucky now to have like the power of social media and the ability to connect, as women going through this time and to share our experiences. I think there's some incredible voices out there that are actually, bringing a lot of knowledge-based, proven information out as well. For me, uh, there's some people that I suppose I would say that women could tune in and learn more. We've got Mary Claire Harver in the US, we've got Louise Newson in the UK, we've got, Dr. Lisa Mosconi writing about the menopause brain. I think even for women just watching, they do a lot of videos perhaps on things like menopausal anxiety, you know, changes in your periods to look out for, body aches and muscle aches and things like that that we might not traditionally link with perimenopause and menopausal symptoms. And I think just kind of seeing that and knowing, okay, like there is a reason for what I'm experiencing.
Mm.
I think it's really important, to educate yourself and to always also have those conversations with your GP. If you've got a GP that you know and you trust, to go in there, and there are a number of resources available online in terms of the symptoms of perimenopause. You can always take in a checklist into your doctor and say, look, I'm experiencing 22 of the 35 perimenopausal symptoms. Do we think that this is a possibility for me? And I think don't feel afraid to get other opinions as well. For me, because of my age, I was quite young, 36 when I started. This was about a 2-year journey for me in terms of, visiting GPs, and I had terrific GPs who had been wonderful to me all through my 20s and 30s with women's health problems. But we do know that I think in some GP education, it's often only about 15 minutes as part of the curriculum, I believe. So, sometimes the poor GPs might be coming up to speed themselves. So, talk to other women who might be in your age bracket who have had success with their GP in terms of their GP taking them seriously and offering them options for treatments. They might have a terrific person that you can see, um, online with some of the support groups on Facebook and so forth. There's often recommendations of particular medical practitioners who are knowledgeable. So don't feel afraid to keep pushing and to go, I'm not feeling good and I want to feel myself again, because you can, and stay empowered when it comes to your health and your future as a woman.
Oh, that's beautiful practical advice. Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
there's so many like key actionable things in there that people can really, take some steps. I think advice sometimes can be very high level and, be empowered. Great. Absolutely. Definitely do that. But actually how? So there's some really, really helpful, practical things there for people. You also mentioned before about, feeling quite scared and alone, as this experience started to unfold for you. And I think that's, something that I've also heard is really common. It can be scary, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of really terrible stories out there and we need to be talking about that and hearing about that. I'm also keen to hear like what are some of the silver linings that you might have experienced along the way or unexpected positives that, as you've gone through your journey, you've discovered, what are you excited about for the future as well?
Definitely. And I will admit it, I had a very rough start to the perimenopause. But like you say, I think it's kind of finding the silver lining there in terms of what's happening next. I've had this experience, but where am I heading and what can I take from it? Um, yeah, for me, one of the really powerful things is I think, my connection with other women. It's made me want to, I guess, help other women and to have conversations that might help them. I think we sometimes forget the power of actually, a few words and sharing, what we've been through and how, some sort of tips and things with it might be family, it might be friends, it might be co-workers. I really take the opportunity now to talk about perimenopause. I think there's been such a stigma in the past, historically, obviously, which is why I think so few of us kind of know that much about it. It was this hush hush conversation. It was referred to as the change, and yeah, it was the worst, best kept secret. So for me, yeah, I've had a lot of really moving conversations with women in my life, who have come out the other side. And I think that they're often great conversations for, if you're in the midst of perimenopause and you're really, I think they call it the zone of chaos.
Mm,
And you're going, is this going to be like this forever? Having those conversations, I think, with women in your life or women that you look up to who
mm,
are older, and can say to you, look, I've been there, if you can just hang in there, on the other side is a lot more. I think for me, learning about there's some amazing research coming out. Dr. Lisa Mosconi and her book, The Menopause Brain, they were looking at women's brains about 6, 7 years post menopause, so post final period. And they saw things like, your amygdala shrink. So the fear center of the brain shrinks and you have less anxiety. Your brain, the brain fog that's often such a key part of perimenopause actually, the brain actually revitalizes itself out the other side. So a lot of the women in these studies were reporting that they are actually the happiest they've ever been, which is really powerful. And I think it's a
mm,
thing to kind of hold on to when you are struggling. So
mm.
I'm kind of looking forward to the other side. And a lot of these women who tell me, that their lives really opened up. My own grandmother, like traveling the world, she was trekking the Himalayas in her 60s. She was jumping out of a plane at age 70. She was doing university degrees. She was very full of life. And I do hear this again and again from older women.
Mm,
So
mm,
I think there's a lot of hope out there. Don't forget about the hope.
mm, mm. Oh, she sounds inspirational.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think there is silver linings. And I would yeah, love to hear about, what you have already experienced, what you're looking forward to, and
Yeah.
have that lens to the conversation as well as
Yes.
what people are experiencing and the, negative impacts to that are very
Yes.
real and have to be worked through and navigated and supported. But I think hearing those stories of hope and looking forward can just bring a bit of comfort to and reassurance that this isn't the end, it's the beginning of
Yes.
something
Yes.
new. And that there's so much richness and life and joy to have as part of that. Is there anything else that you want to share with people about perimenopause, midlife, women's health, your journey, that you'd love to share?
Definitely. I think the other thing that's probably like a silver lining as well for me has been, I guess when you're going through a bit of a turbulent time, this zone of chaos when your body and your brain and your emotions, they all feel a bit out of control. I think for me, being able to look at health, our mental and physical and emotional health, as a broad spectrum and actually encompassing a lot of different things to help you through this, particular patch. I think for
Mm,
every woman that's individual, and it's working out what helps you.
mm,
For me, I think that MHC menopausal hormone therapy has been incredible for me for just coming back and feeling myself again.
mm,
But I also incorporate things like strength training. I go for massage. I have honed in on nutrition.
mm,
Things like yoga, stretching. Things like connecting with our friends and going for a walk together or getting a coffee. I think there's all different ways of bringing in, that broad approach
mm,
for our health
mm,
and just considering things like your health of your bones so your
mm.
strength training and coming out the other side in menopause as a strong vital woman. So everybody's different in terms of the
Yeah.
tools that will help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's those age-old pillars and foundations of good health, but I think what's different is how we then see them through the lens of this stage of life and why they're important. They're important for bone health as we age and, healthy aging, having all of those pillars as the foundation for healthy aging, particularly in the context of hormone chaos. All of those things that are always important, I think, get dialed up to 100. And so, for people to really be aware that we've got to pay more attention to those things to feel that kind of support and foundation of health through this particular time. So, yeah, I think it's such a good point to say, around like why this matters more than, of course, it always matters, but there's
Yes.
like we're dialing it up now. Yeah, that's so helpful. Well, thank you for bringing your voice, your advocacy, your platform, your passion to, spreading the word, building community, connecting people to, help people feel empowered about their health in midlife, especially through perimenopause. I've learned so much from you in such a short time and yeah, just love your work and everything that you're doing. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to chat and to, yeah, just talk about this further. I'm obviously loud and proud perimenopausal woman.